Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon to review the Reimagining AutoCAD LT, looking at smarter tools with greater flexibility, with myself, Stuart Tanfield, and my colleague, Dieter Vermeulen. During this session, we're going to take a look at the typical type of usage for AutoCAD LT users, the different types of persona, as well as outlining some of the various options that are available to those personas and the expected benefits that they can receive from using potentially different workflows and different tool sets. So without further ado, let's move forward. And Dieter, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everyone, and welcome indeed on this webinar. I'm Dieter Vermeulen. I'm based in Belgium and operating as a solutions engineer for the AECO industry within Autodesk, covering lots of topics within the company. And today it will be very much focused on the common data environment and AutoCAD LT. And Stuart, well, that's up to you now.
Lovely. Thanks, Dieter. Yeah, I'm Stuart Tanfield. I'm a senior technical solution exec at Autodesk. My background is around building services and I've been in and around the AECO industry for around 20 plus years. And I would say my particular expertise is across really all of the digital enablement and collaboration, but also looking to help our customers to connect capabilities to actually their overall business goals as well, which might seem like an unusual thread, but actually that's something that's very common amongst our customers. Thanks, Dieter. Okay, so we're going to kick off with our agenda and we'll start to look at industry trends and challenges. And then we'll move on to digital transformation. So looking at what is driving the digital transformation through the industry. We'll then review the user profiles and the different types of user that take on the Autodesk technology and use that in various methods. And then we'll take a look at a day in the life of, so understanding how those users use those tools. And you probably see yourself or your colleagues in some of these a day in the life of as we start to move forward and recognize where some of the patterns may exist. We'll then hand to Dieter for the art of the possible, where we can start to see some of the tools that would be available to you and how they could impact and improve efficiency and the way that you may collaborate with your other team members. And then we'll close with a Q&A. And that probably just brings me on to the point around Q&A. Feel free to add any questions you have in the Q&A box at the bottom. We've left some space at the end, so we will be able to answer those. As we're going through, we may also be able to respond to those during the presentation. And of course, if we run out of time, that's no problem. We will make sure that all questions get answered and you'll be given those responses as well. Okay, so let's kick off and let's just talk a little bit at a very kind of high level, really, around some of those industry trends that we see. Some of the biggest things that we recognize is really around the fact that people need to be able to access information all the time from wherever they are. So it's really important that we're able to go to one location and grab the information that we need. It means that we also need to be able to look at how we can collaborate with anyone, anywhere, at any time. What is the driver behind that is actually the demands on projects and the delivery of those projects is more and more. We are seeing that quicker turnarounds of project delivery. We're seeing quicker decision-making processes happening. But a challenge that we have is that some of that information is not always available. So again, it's really, really important that we're able to see and recognize the information that we have, the responsibilities we have, and actually be able to see that information very quickly in a very, very accessible way. So this is really what we're seeing, and this is to enable teams to collaborate far more efficiently, have access to information in a more efficient way and a more accurate way. And this enables teams to come together much more effectively and really reduce the time it takes to deliver projects, share information, and distribute that information into the variable teams that are sitting around a project. Thanks, Dieter. Okay, so if that's what we're seeing, what are the challenges that we are experiencing with our customers that they're facing? One of the big challenges, and when we talk about using AutoCAD LT, is AutoCAD LT is a great tool. I've used AutoCAD, I think in the year 2000 was my first experience in using AutoCAD. What I've have recognized over that time is that at that time, AutoCAD LT was great for doing my day-to-day drafting, but actually it sat in a very siloed environment. It was very unconnected. And it was really just used for viewing DWGs for many, many individuals. But now if you think about also the ability that we need to collaborate, AutoCAD LT doesn't really provide us with that same level of collaboration. So across our teams, whether we're using things like Revit or AutoCAD, whether it's just PDFs, we need to be able to collaborate and share that information. So it's important that we have this single source of truth to be able to store and disseminate information amongst our team. And it's also important that we make sure we're able to track our issues. At the moment, lots of issues are managed over emails, as an example. We need to ensure that people have the right tool for the right job. Quite often we see a bit of a mismatch between personas and the activities they need to carry out, and then the tools that they have that enable them to do that. So looking at things like how metadata can be tracked, how we're able to actually view files without necessarily the need to download them, but also providing things like markups, comments, and approvals back into the internal teams as well. And we have a standard approach. I think when we see AutoCAD LT being positioned with our customers, it actually is sometimes part of a new starter pack. Sometimes a new starter will have a laptop and a copy of AutoCAD LT. That is just the way it's happened. And actually, maybe a few years ago, that would be a perfectly adequate environment to provide your users with the technology that they needed. Whereas perhaps today, there are other tools that provide better capabilities for the purposes and the outcomes that those users may need. So it can be seen as an outdated practice to use AutoCAD LT to simply use it for viewing. And of course, the flexibility. We need to be able to provide flexibility. So sometimes some people may just need to view information, but often they may need to just edit it every now and then. And it may not be that a daily occurrence that they start to use AutoCAD. And then finally, I suppose supply and demand. When we talk about the requests that come, and typically maybe into an IT base, those requests come in an understanding that IT recognize that the user knows what they're asking for. But sometimes the user has the understanding that the IT team know exactly the tools that are available to them and will provide them with the most appropriate. So the reality is sometimes there is a lack of understanding about A, what is available, and B, what should be being used by the users. So having a bit of an open mind and education around the tools that could be applied is actually really, really important. It's also important to recognize that there are extended tool sets that are available. And without understanding what those extended tool sets are, you quite often just deliver what you've always delivered. So it's important to make sure there's alignment across everybody in recognizing we need to select the right tools and provide the right tools for the right need. So these are the challenges that we see on a daily basis with our customers who do operate, let's say, in a predominantly AutoCAD LT environment. And actually, from our experience, we recognize that there is another way. And hence, of course, this webinar is to get the message to our customers that there's another way, and there's a way that you can work with us to establish what that looks like for you. Thanks, Dieter.
So if we put this in the daylight of digital transformation, we see that Autodesk has been leading this digital transformation in the AEC industry already for about 40 years now. So in fact, we've led the industry through 4 waves of transformation, as we call it. And first, we enabled the shift from the drafting table to the computer with AutoCAD, which is, well, the focus we have on here today. But if we look a bit further, there's also this optimized BIM-based design with Revit that got accelerated through the catalyst of downturns and mandates. And a few years ago, we extended this digital design to construction and operations with the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So there's a huge focus in there on team collaboration and shared information in the cloud. Now, today we are connecting all that data across the full design, across build, across operate lifecycle, with products such as Forma, which is our industry cloud for the AC industry. And all of that is based on connected data ecosystems with the AC data model. Now, all of this is driven by those catalysts. So this gives you an overview on what will be a future situation for most of you, and depending on what type of AutoCAD user you are. So which will be explained a bit later in this presentation by Stuart. So this is why digital transformation is not just about technology only. It's also a journey to unlock new capabilities and ways of working. It's about connecting people, it's about connecting processes and technology from the entire AECO ecosystem. And if we look at it from a bit more product side of view, this CAD to cloud acceleration goes through several phases. So it's not just from CAD to cloud immediately. It needs a few, let's say, more nuanced approaches. So like in AutoCAD, we are viewing drawings, do layer management commands, and all that stuff. In ACC, there are a few typical things that are done in the same way, but also some new things that are actually not done within CAD. And that's actually what is moving forward, meaning in here. That's what this digital transformation can mean for you. Things that are done on a paper way or a very analog way these days, that can be digitized in a different way here with cloud. And the next step in that is all that data that has been digitized, that data can be used together with, for instance, Autodesk AI to get real-time insights or perform more automated tasks in there. Now we are going to talk about this a bit more in detail when we get into the product itself in depth. But before we get to that, Stuart is going to explain a bit more about the user profiles that we have seen within the LT user base. Stuart, over to you.
Thanks, Dieter. So I think that typically we see three core user profiles when it comes to AutoCAD LT. In the first instance, we see the power user, and this is someone that uses AutoCAD LT probably almost every day. It is part of their core tool set, and we would suggest that they are drafting, modifying, creating drawings on a regular basis. We then have an occasional user, and this is someone who typically may be an engineer, an architect, but on the whole, they tend to use AutoCAD LT for editing small changes. That may be a typo in a text box. It may be slightly moving a block. It may be a title block adjustment. But these are very small changes typically, and they happen on an occasional basis rather than every single day. And if you're like me and have the experience in this world, you'll realize that sometimes, if you're an engineer, you may find that you've made a mistake in your markup for the CAD team to go and convert, and you don't want to go to the back of the CAD queue. So having your own copy of AutoCAD LT means you can make those changes very quickly and still get your drawings out on time, as opposed to going to the back of the CAD queue. And then lastly, we have the viewer, so the view only. And this is one that I say I have my own personal experience with. My background, as I mentioned, was building services, and often our engineers would have AutoCAD LT just as a backstop, really. But quite often I would walk past their screens and they would be turning on and off layers, they would be taking measurements, they'll be printing out so they can do markups. But they were doing things that were definitely not editing in any way, and quite often our engineers never wanted to edit. But they had it because it came as part of being a new starter, a new engineer. So, and this view-only persona is actually more common in your business maybe than you may recognize, or indeed, of course, you may already know this. But Dieter, if you move to the next slide, we can maybe just take a quick view on what the numbers look like. So typically we see the split over our customers when we survey them is roughly like so. So roughly 61% use AutoCAD LT for viewing only. 33% are power users and 6% are occasional users. Now that's a big number to have against an AutoCAD LT license when viewing is the only activity they actually carry out. And indeed, that really presents a much better and different option for you. There are better tools to provide you with a view-only experience. And as Dieter mentioned there, that extend beyond what they're actually doing today. Now, if we take a look, a day in the life of the viewer. So in this particular example, Grace is an engineer. Her skills are in engineering. She went to university to study engineering and has a master's. And so when she comes into the working environment, she wants to be able to engineer. She wants to make sure she delivers projects on time and on budget. And what she doesn't really want to have to deal with is managing the coordination of drawings, distributing information, working across multiple systems. So typically you would see things like, from a view-only perspective, uploading and downloading files, receiving new files in from clients, looking at comparing designs, the design previously to the design now. She'll also need to be able to make sure that she can view CAD files. And the way to do that is obviously to use AutoCAD LT. But all of these things contribute to maybe some wants, needs, and frustrations that Grace would have. And they would be, for example, more time to engineer. And of course, that would mean less time in managing files, an easier way to communicate with a team, and of course, finish on time. Like everybody wants to finish on time. Nobody would choose to work late. So the aim there is that if we can make that easy, then of course, that's going to help us. The needs, of course, oh, sorry, Dieter, if I could just finish, sorry. The needs, of course, are improving the quality of design, deliver projects to budget, as I mentioned, and time. But the frustrations, and these are the things that cause problems across most teams, is time searching for files, manual processes in sharing, and communicating change. These are things that really typically challenge the viewer. Thanks, Dieter. If we then look at a day in the life of a power user, so this is Carl, and he spends all his time using AutoCAD LT. And in fact, he has lots of experience in not just AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT, but other technologies as well. Carl will be setting up drawings, standards, libraries, ensuring that standards and Q&A procedures are kept to. And what Carl really wants is more time for R&D to be able to use the most efficient tools and, of course, deliver consistency. He needs, again, to deliver projects on time, but there is a need also for centralized data to ensure consistency amongst the team. And, of course, wants to reduce the amount of rework that comes through his team. And the big frustrations are inconsistent processes, as I'm sure we can imagine, no centralized standards because people are gathering information from any location, whether it's a local server, whether it's SharePoint, whether it's OneDrive or any other environment, and then making local copies of these. And of course, because of that, Carl often works late to hit those deadlines. And again, I'm sure all of us on this call have been in a situation where you've had to work late and there has to have been a better way of doing things. Thanks, Dieter. And then finally, we have Kim. Kim is an occasional user. So actually, she spends a lot of her time using AutoCAD for viewing, but in terms of modifying, that happens very, very infrequently. And again, this is because she wants to be able to do the small changes and tweaks that may come up. She's an experienced through her engineering degree at university, again, but is still building her business going forward. The reality here is, though, that her needs and her wants are to be self-sufficient, and she wants easy access to DWG files, and of course, access to AutoCAD LT. The needs are that she needs to be able to make small adjustments, deliver projects on time, and communicate this with a wider team. But the big frustrations are joining the back of the CAD queue, limited CAD skills. This is not really her domain. And obviously, again, being able to communicate change. And actually, she tends to use things like email, SharePoint, and CAD to complete one single task that could be done in a better way. Thanks, Dieter.
Okay, so with this, we gave you a bit of background and a bit of context, at least, for what we are going to do now in the next part of this webinar. And in the next about 20 to 30 minutes, we are having a closer look to the Autodesk Construction Cloud and how the products in there, or specific products in there, can be used and can be matched with the needs, the frustrations that these three user profiles actually face. And to give you a bit of insight in ACC itself, it's what we call a unified platform for the AC project delivery. So it's a solution that is working through the full life cycle of a project from design to operate, and depending on the phase, it has different characteristics.
What if you could access up-to-date project data, regardless of when you needed it or where you were working from? What if you were confident that files you shared with project stakeholders could be reliably tracked and securely delivered? And what if your multidisciplinary teams could effortlessly stay ahead of changing project conditions, constraints, or issues? Without access to the right information when you need it, your projects could be burdened with cost overruns and schedule delays. Autodesk Docs is a cloud-based common data environment that gives teams access to the most complete and current project data when they need it, simplifying document management and collaboration throughout the entire project lifecycle. With Autodesk Docs, data management is centralized, allowing you and your team to publish, review, and comment on the latest project design information anytime, anywhere. Confidently distribute and share documents, knowing that project data is safe, secure, and that the right information gets into the right hands. Effectively track project progress through rapidly changing requirements. And because Autodesk Docs is included in the AEC collection, designers and engineers can reliably access up-to-date design models by connecting industry-leading BIM and CAD tools to project information in a common data environment. Reduce costs by minimizing errors and rework, save time and streamline review and approval workflows, and improve team alignment and stay on schedule. Work better together and improve project delivery with Autodesk Docs.
So this video gave you an overview of what we are going to talk about, in this case, Autodesk Docs, which is our document management module within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And it's not only included within AEC collection, it's also included in other entitlements such as BIM Collaborate Pro or in Autodesk Build. And we see that, we position this Autodesk Docs as a CDE or a common data environment, and that's based in the browser in the clouds. So Docs is actually the heart of the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. And this is also where you can store, where you can manage projects and files, collaborate with other people, either internally or externally to the organization. And you can do this from anywhere, from home, office, or even your construction site, as long as you are connected to the internet, obviously. Now, the idea is then that you can manage your files from everywhere. That's the big thing in with Docs, and storing files in Docs does not consume any space from your local machine or your local server. It has an unlimited storage on the Autodesk Construction Cloud, so that's already one of the advantages in there. You can upload, store, and manage all the project files in 2D and 3D files. I'll show you that a bit more in detail later on here. And everything is available, as I said already, from any device, from any location. So it's what we call a single source of truth for all the team members, for all the profiles of those AutoCAD drawings. So the occasional user, the viewer, or the power user. So it's included in multiple subscriptions, as we already said. So an AC collection, in the ACC and Autodesk Construction Cloud, where, for instance, also BIM Collaborate Pro is in and Build is in there. But if you have a license of Workshop XR, then you also have the entitlement of Docs already in there. Now, to start with the initial setup, a project setup, it's important to understand that there are two pieces within ACC. So there is a level of account administration and there is a level of project administration. And a user, of course, must have edit permission in order to work on these specific topics. And it often requires an administrator of the project to enable this. So that's all done through the account administration. In there, people can be invited to what we call a hub, an ACC hub. And the project administration are all the several projects that are part of each of those hubs and can hold then project files and specific rights for specific members of that project. And regarding security, you see that there is a great deal of flexibility in here to control who has access to your files. So you can grant a different level of permissions to each project member. And with it, you can also restrict user access to certain folders or limit access according to the user, to its role, or to the company the user is working for. And in the Autodesk Construction Cloud, you can also control the exposure of the design deliverables. So with the assurance that the right information is in the right hands throughout the whole project. As I mentioned, Docs sits in the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. So in the main portal, the project administrators, they are using the project list to manage their projects and their templates. Now, when you are creating a new project, you can enter a variety of information such as the location, the project type, obviously also the project name, project number, and so on and so on. And you can also save it as a template later on so that you can use this for future projects. Now, once the project has been created, you can then navigate to the project admin module to add new members to the project. So they can be from your own company, or they can also be from other companies, such as external consultants, for instance. And every project member here will get a different access level, which is based on their role or the company they work for. Now, after this basic settings of the project has been set up, you can start to create a project folder structure itself in Docs. And this will then be your primary location for storing and organizing all the project content into different folders, which is happening in here. So you get like this different types of folders, and of course also with all the rights that have been set previously. Project templates in here, they are in place to standardize your projects by reusing the same settings and folder structure from a previous project that, for instance, you created and you use that as a template. And these templates, they will allow administrators also to streamline the process of creating multiple projects with similar configurations. So the administrators, they can configure all those settings for various products, but also various tools in those templates, including setting up the members, standard files, and much more. So you can either create a blank template, or you take a template from an existing project, and that way it can move on faster. So once the project setup is done, there are three very specific characteristics of the common data environment. And first part is document control. Now, within document control, we are going to talk about how to upload, how to download, storage, sharing, and reviewing of files. There is plenty of file types that can be used. As I mentioned already, it's an unlimited cloud storage that you have in there. Permission management is a very important thing, but also how do we access those files from other devices, such as a local desktop, through the Desktop Connector app, for instance. Now, as we said already, this template can be used to set up the folder structures in accordance with, for instance, company standards. Now, also additional folders, of course, can be added manually if needed. And once these folder structures have been created, then the permissions, as you see in here, can be applied to each individual folder. And team members' permissions are added separately, or alternatively, all the project members can be added together in one. Now, files that are currently in use, they are locked, and a team member that is working on a file is displayed in here. So on the right-hand side, you can see who has updated it and by who it's locked. Now, if necessary, you can unlock the files, of course. Now, besides Revit files, you can upload over about 80 file types into a Docs folder. You can either do it by using drag and drop, or you can upload it using a dialog. We can then also, once it's uploaded and processed on the cloud, which is indicated here with the successful publishing icon, you can then open it directly within the viewer on the browser, or you can also open it on the Desktop Connector app. And the desktop connector is actually the desktop version of Autodesk Docs. So even files that have been dragged through using your Windows Explorer from one specific local folder to your desktop connector folder, it will immediately also upload it to your Docs project. So these files will then be available in either local desktop, either your cloud environment. The second piece within the document management module is working with documents. And working with documents is mainly about the document versioning that we are going to talk about in here. So you can make sure that you share and use the most up-to-date version of your files. So everyone is then on the same page, which is obviously also avoiding any miscommunication or endless emails, file zipping, and so on. And one of the important pieces in there is the viewing of the file. So reviewing, for instance, drawing properties, a possibility also to manage XREFs within an AutoCAD file, view multiple tab layouts in there, but you can also switch off and on the components of a specific project. In this case, the components are the layers that you can switch on and off. Also very important is the text search features within your DWG file or your file search itself within the project. So go into the folder structure on Docs and then look for a specific file. It's a very fast way of finding your projects in there. Now, for every document in Docs, you will also see the number of versions. Each time you publish or upload the file to the cloud, it will add another version to the record, as long as you keep the same file name, of course. So you can always access and view previous versions in the version history window, and then retrieve previous versions as a current version. And this version control feature is providing a version history for all those individual files. So it's actually a mechanism for those previous versions to be set as current at any stage of a project. Now, Docs will always show you the latest version, as I said, but in there, it's also important to have a file comparison so that you can see what has actually happened between my two different versions. And with the compare versions functionality, you can easily see in a graphical way what actually has been changed, what has been added, what has been deleted in my project. So this way you can clearly identify it in a visual way. But what about sharing? We can share internally, you can share externally, you can share files with other project members. That's the first thing. So that's one of the three ways. Or you can say anyone with a link, which is making then a shared public link with anyone. So even if they are not part of your Docs project, they will be able to open up the file, or at least to open up the viewer on that file, which will be done through an external web page then. Or you can also use Bridge, which is sharing with other ACC projects. So that means that you can transfer files from one project to another, or share it at least to them, so that they also have availability from the other project into your current project. Now, project data can be shared to any team member on the project, but it is also possible to share data directly to an external project directly into its folder structure itself. And that's what is shown in here. So you can take the target folder, then it will be put into, for instance, the received subfolder of this project. Another option to share files is via the transmittals tool. A transmittals is a formal way of sending files to another project member or a non-project member and get a full record of the transmittals and their status. So you can create transmittals under the transmittals tool here in Docs. They don't update the contents version. They are formal sharing, and they capture snapshots of the current version of files. So the recipients of the transmittals, they are notified by email when it's ready to view in the cloud, and it can be downloaded then as a zip file. And now project administrators, they can also enable their project members with at least the create plus upload permission to transmit files to non-project members. So once that is sent, the recipient must verify their email, their name and company, and then they can view the shared files. So it's a safe environment for sharing using these transmittals. Now, there's also access from other devices than a web browser or your local desktop. You can also use mobile devices such as a tablet or a smartphone to view drawings and do some field review, even markups, issues, everything that we will see later on in this presentation as well on what can be done in cloud can also be done on any device that has access to this Autodesk Construction Cloud project. So that gives a great advantage of having this device available with you on a construction site. So you don't need to bring your desktop with you, or at least your laptop, your workstation with you on a construction site with a tablet. You have also access to all your drawings to have a look on what needs to be changed or what do we need to communicate, for instance, to the back office. Now, another way of accessing documents is straight from the AutoCAD desktop environment itself. So when it's connected to ACC, you also get access to those ACC projects straight from within AutoCAD. So that you don't have to download projects, you can immediately open them in here, work on them, maybe even in here, make some little modifications like moving that door and upload it immediately back to the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So when it's checked out, it's locked. When you check it in, then it's unlocked, obviously, and then you get a new version in there once it's saved. So that was the piece about the access of the documents. A third piece is document approvals. Now, document approvals, this chapter is mainly about the intuitive approval capabilities that we have, where teams can simplify, control, automate the review and the distribution of project drawings. And again, if those templates are set up properly, a team member can create a new review by selecting like one of those pre-made templates and adding files and notes to it, and then click send to someone else to review it. So users can choose to send an email to the reviewer and other project members, so to keep all the stakeholders informed. And the review is added to a list so that afterwards you can follow up and reviewers receive also an email with their task that they need to do. Now, very important in there is, of course, first having markups. And with markups, this is a tool that helps you to communicate on those 2D files. So you can create and edit markups on 2D PDFs, PNGs, JPEGs, but also any 2D elements that are contained within a DWG, so an AutoCAD drawing, or even a Revit file. And it's only available for the project members that have create permissions. So there are also viewers in that project. They can only view the markups, and then there are creators that have like the permission to add markups to actually do the actual review of a project. So there are two specifics in here. You can publish the markup, so then it's visible to all the project members, and it stays there until one deletes the markup. And there is also a link that you can add, or you can at least add a reference to the markup to link to, so that it's easier to find them back. Another piece of marking up is also measuring. There is a measuring itself as a markup where you can draw lines or measure lines, at least measure areas, but there is also a detailed in canvas measuring, which is meant for reviewing a drawing to understand what is actually the angle between two lines, what is actually the perimeter of a specific thing. Yeah, don't expect the very detailed annotations that one does in an AutoCAD file. That's where AutoCAD is used for. But in here, this measuring is mainly used for the reviewing process. If I have a look on how that works, we can take this drawing of this site, and the markup tools in here, they show you how easy it is to facilitate the addition of review commands to a file. And these commands, they can be published, can make them visible to everyone on the project, or they can be kept private for individual use only. Markups, they can also reference other documents, such as other file sheets, or maybe even RFIs for more improved collaboration then. When you review files and docs, you can leave your feedback, your thoughts, raise problems directly on the file without having to send all those emails or sending screenshots to each other. And one of the important pieces in there is also project issues. Now, these issues, they can easily be created and assigned to any team member again, with a description of the issue and the due date. And watchers, they can also be separately assigned to keep them informed of the issue progress. As with markups, other assets can be linked to the issue through references again. And in here also, two members, they will receive an email notification that an issue has been assigned to them. And it will also appear on their home screen, as you just saw. As progress is made and the issue status has changed, this is also reflected in the home screen of every user that is involved in the issue. Now, a latest addition that we had in AutoCAD 25 is that you can also sync the markups to your AutoCAD environment. So when you plot a PDF file, for instance, from AutoCAD 2025 to a location in your project, which is stored in Docs, you can then take advantage of using these markup tools inside Docs and then synchronize those same markups for all the project collaborators. When your user has finished creating those markups inside of Docs, you can then sync them back to AutoCAD as well. And let's see on how that works in here. There we go, we sync them to AutoCAD, and this will connect and also sync the markup collaborators that have created in there. And you can see this within the AutoCAD environment immediately. So you can also use that markup import tool in AutoCAD directly to connect and sync them as well. And once synced, the markups are made in Docs at least. They will continue to update in what we call a trace layer in AutoCAD. So you can review or incorporate feedback without having to switch between all those applications constantly. Another way of reviewing drawings is using the web version of AutoCAD. In this specific case, an issue is also communicated or assigned to someone, and it's communicated to that person. That person at that moment doesn't have a AutoCAD installed on his desktop, so he can open the file on his license on Autodesk or on AutoCAD web version, and then immediately take actions that are needed, save it back to the Autodesk Construction Cloud, make a new version of it, and this way the reviewer can see what actually has been changed between version 1 and version 2, and then approve the modification of the drawing. Well, having all that data available, it's also important to understand then how reports and dashboards can be used in here. And project administrators, they can schedule reports to run them automatically on a regular cadence. Now, anyone with access to the report can then also share the report with other members, and the reports can be shared using either a direct link to download or by email. The recipients of the shared report, they are visible also in the reports tool. So this way it gives you visibility on who can actually look at all the reports that are contained in the project. Another version, or another way at least, of reviewing your data, reviewing what has happened in that project is using dashboards. So you get access and insights to that data, and it's all at your fingertips. You can customize the widgets that you have on that dashboard. You can review the submittals, how many submittals did we send out, which ones are still open, are there a few of them might be overdue, and then this way you can take immediate action on it without having to send out again emails or track all the emails that have been sent previously about a specific project issue. Now, having all of this in place, we get an extra advantage of having this naming standards or all kinds of other standards through the ISO 9650. And to make sure that we are compliant with the ISO, there are quite some tools available within Docs that make it possible to create folders that are actually forced to use that ISO naming standard. And the project admin can apply the ISO as default, or they can even customize the name attributes and the order of the attributes to match maybe any other company naming standard or the national standard. And this is what we call forced folder. And this forced folder to the naming standard, it means that you will have a validation of the naming convention. So that means that if you upload a file that is not compliant to the naming standard, the file will be kept in this red holding area until the name will be fixed and until the name matches the standard. And only then it will be back to the right folder. Now within the desktop connector app, I told you already that you can connect Docs from, or connect to Docs at least from your local desktop, but also in there, if the ISO standard is applied to the project, the naming validator will also work on it, and you can correct your file name in the desktop folder as well if needed. So all changes will be fully synced then between the desktop folder and Docs in the cloud. Another thing which is very time consuming is building a drawing list. Now, once all your drawings are uploaded in your ACC environment, you have the possibility to export this list as an Excel spreadsheet with all the data from the cloud. So you can generate a drawing log report and share them then again externally with all the metadata that has been added to those files. Now, this is a very quick overview. We can even go way more into depth on how all of these functionalities work, but I think this gives you a very good insight on the specific capabilities of Docs compared to what we are used to work with within AutoCAD. And Stuart, I'm sending it over to you to talk a bit more about what influence this also can have on our occasional users.
Yeah, thanks, Dieter. And I think this is really important to note that where we talk about viewers and the capabilities Dieter's just shown there, a lot of those capabilities are trying to be cobbled together using AutoCAD LT, SharePoint, email, and a combination of other practices. And I think that that is wholly appropriate for those types of user. And it may be that if you think, well, I might be an occasional user, so I use maybe AutoCAD LT very rarely, but I do still need to use it, then actually there is a combination of environments. So we would still recommend the ACC environment for viewing and reviewing and collaborating. But for the occasional user, the need to still use AutoCAD LT is important, or indeed AutoCAD is important. So this isn't about removing tools that people actually need, but this is about trying to bring the right tools to the right people. And so therefore, for those people who use AutoCAD occasionally at this moment in time, then the Flex option is actually a more cost-effective option. And what this really means is you would pay for a set of tokens, and those tokens are valid for a year. And what it enables you to do is assign a series of Flex users to specific tools. And what that means is that the occasional users could all be added into the Flex pool and being given access to AutoCAD, for example. The moment they fire up AutoCAD, you have a 5-minute grace period, and after that, it will charge you your daily token usage. The benefit of this is that it's really effective for those people who use AutoCAD LT very, very occasionally. It's great if you want to turn something on very quickly for a user. It also means that if you want to start to view or use other tools or explore maybe as part of R&D, but look at other tools, you get access to a wider range of tools, including things like Revit, Navisworks, etc. So the idea here is that you still get access to AutoCAD. It's a more cost-effective way of using AutoCAD. And the idea is that it enables you still to collaborate in conjunction with ACC to pull everything together. Dieter, if you don't mind moving to the next slide. And the idea is that there is a daily rate based on the tools that you use. And here are the daily rates for the top products that sit within the Flex token offering. And you'll see there's AutoCAD full version, I would add, Revit, we have Recap Pro as an example, Civil 3D. So these tools are all available from Flex. And again, typically when we ask customers what they are doing and what they like to be able to do, quite often the response that comes back involves some sort of 3D work, whether that's to be able to review 3D CAD files, whether it's to review Revit files, but they don't want to review them all the time. They might want to work on them occasionally. And indeed, they might just want to view them. And of course, if they want to view them, ACC will support in that viewing. So the idea is that the combination of ACC for viewers and Flex for those people who occasionally use AutoCAD is a really good combination and a much better fit for our customers that we see. And of course, if you are a power user, absolutely, AutoCAD LT may be exactly the tool that you need to remain on because you use it on a consistent and regular basis. The only addition I would say is that if you're not using ACC today, and of course there are other people within your organization who might look to use ACC instead of AutoCAD LT, then it would make sense for you to consider adopting the ACC environment as well to contribute to the collaboration of all those teams. So really that probably brings us on to the next part, which is, well, what actually happens then for those typical users who might need both subscription, Flex, or ACC? So if we go back to those examples before, so Grace, who never uses AutoCAD for editing, she only uses it for reviewing and viewing. Well, in actual fact, her best view is to move and switch to an ACC-based workflow. If we then go to Cole, and Cole uses AutoCAD every day for editing, of course, Cole is definitely stick on subscription that you're on today, but consider the adoption of ACC to additionally contribute to the collaboration with Grace, for example. And then finally, Kim, who uses AutoCAD maybe 2 days per month to do editing. Of course, for her, it definitely is around Flex. And indeed, for the viewing capability piece, it's around ACC as well. So they're kind of the guidelines around if your current users within your organization currently have what we would deem to be best-in-class tools for the workflows that they're carrying out. And this is the part that we ask our customers to consider what it is they're doing today, and then start to consider if there is an optimum way they're working. You may already be working in this way, but the fact you're on this webinar makes me believe you may have had a conversation already, which would emulate that actually we may not have the right fit within our business. And then finally, of course, what do we need to do next? So the next steps beyond this, really, get in touch. So of course you have your Autodesk account manager and typically your Autodesk chosen partner manager. Get in touch with either of those. Explore the usage. So look at how you can start to understand the usage across your own business and the tools that are being used and the impact that that is having, positive or negative, on the workflows you are carrying out today. And then finally, make sure that we can identify the right fit for you. So what is right for you and your teams and the way that they're working based on the feedback that your teams provide us, ensuring that we've got the right tools for the right job. And in all of that, measuring the benefits that that brings. So switching from maybe the older style way of working to the more relevant way of working brings some distinct benefits. So how can we measure those with you as well to help you understand the benefits of that? Okay, and I think that brings us just very nicely to Q&A in case we do have any questions. I didn't see any questions posted, so maybe if you do have any questions, feel free to post those now. Failing that, I think that probably brings us to the conclusion of our webinar. So again, just to reiterate, get in touch with your Autodesk account manager or your Autodesk partner manager and start that conversation around how you're using the tools, how your team are using the tools, and just establish, actually, is there some rationalization that could take place? Can we remove some of those AutoCAD LTs, and actually, can we use some of that previous investment into something like ACC that's going to help us improve our collaboration and overall approach in terms of projects reviewing and collaborating? And with that all said, I would just like to thank everybody for attending. Your attendance is really appreciated. Hopefully you've seen some information that will be useful to you. And of course, over time, if you choose to explore this further, you'll see the benefits that could be realized within your own organization. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.